Welcome to the Rochester, New Hampshire History Podcast, a monthly show that will shine a light on a piece of history that has been all but forgotten.
Wadley Road, formerly known as Axe Handle Road, is located on Route 125. There you will find a dirt road. Follow the dirt road for about 100 yards and then venture into the woods. You will find Hodgson Park, which has a picnic table, a memorial, unleaded rough headstones, and the Axe Handle River. The memorial is a dedication to the last person killed by Indians in Rochester. Unfortunately, the victim's first name has been forgotten and lost over time. She was married to Jonathan Hodgson. The exact spot where Mrs. Hodgson was slain is unknown, but the park is believed to be close to it. The memorial and stones used to be located on Route 125, but when there were plans to widen the road, the stones and memorial were moved here. In 1994, the owner of the Anchorage Motel provided the land for this park, as well as the picnic table. The land was then deeded to the city of Rochester. The Axe Handle River provides a beautiful setting for this small park.
The sad story of Mrs. Hodgson's violent death is as follows. On Sunday morning of May 1st, 1748, Jonathan Hodgson and his wife left the safety of the Gonic garrison to find their cows. Unknown to them, a group of Indians were concealed nearby and were determined to attack any settlers that left the confines of the fort. Mrs. Hodgson was quickly seized, and the Indians tried to keep her quiet and carry her away as a prisoner, but she persisted in screaming. The Indians killed her before her screams could alert the other settlers. Her husband, who was not far away, heard her screams and, not knowing the cause of her distress, ran to her. He arrived to see her killed. While the Indians were in the act of scalping her, he tried to fire his gun, but it misfired. He then escaped to the garrison. The news spread rapidly of the Indian attack. The settlers of Rochester had an old cannon that was charged with 9 pounds of gunpowder. It was fired off to alert all of Rochester of the attack. The cannon blast was heard all the way into Portsmouth. A large party of Rochester men gathered and looked for the Indians. By 2 p.m., a company of soldiers arrived from Portsmouth to help. The settlers and soldiers searched as far west as the Winnipesaukee, but to no avail. The hostile Indians escaped and were never seen in the area again.
This was the last Indian attack in Rochester. One of the reasons for this was, a few weeks earlier, New Hampshire Governor Benning Wentworth had ordered Captain Job Clements of Dover to form a 35-member militia to combat Indians in Rochester. Job Clements was directed to impress or enlist 35 men. He was to command them as they scoured the region for hostile Indians. Every 14 days he was to report to Governor Wentworth. This new militia, though only numbering 35, was a staunch vanguard and dissuaded future Indian attacks. Also, the settlers of Rochester had improved in their ability to fight Indians. Frank McDuffie, from his book The History of Rochester, wrote, "The settlers, also, through exposure and experience, had become better warriors and understood better how to cope with their savage and wily foes."
With the threat of Indians removed, more settlers moved into the area. The process of building a town could begin in earnest.
This ends the podcast. If you have any questions or comments, please email bobgriffinpodcast@gmail.com and come back next month for another episode of Rochester, New Hampshire History.